Part 10. A World Beyond the Ridge. The Great Revelation. Chapter 1. The Ascent to Unfiltered Clarity. The extensive protective embrace of the high-altitude forests, the realm that had nurtured her preparation, held the rhythm of her vows, and absorbed the initial frantic energy of her ascent, finally came to an end. The path, utterly exhausted of its vertical dominance, surrendered abruptly. The trees give way to open rising rock, transitioning from the organic familiar chaos of the woods to the pure geometric uncompromising clarity of the alpine zone. This was the moment of complete exposure, the ascent to the first true vista, where the air is sharp and thin, scrubbing the senses clean of all lingering doubts, all residual ease, and all soft, comforting perfumes of the valley. Elara's climb demanded a mandatory halt here. She found footing on a massive, stable platform of slate-gray granite, the unmistakable transition point between the realm of the terrestrial earth and the boundary of the unconstrained sky. She looked inward, not at the ground she had covered, but toward the invisible, psychological measure of her progress. She was metaphorically standing and pausing, staring at the clock, acknowledging the immense volume of time, sacrifice, and rigorous effort already invested in the endeavor. Yet in this vast open space, the human construct of time itself seemed to lose its authority, its relentless, linear ticking replaced by a sense of profound cosmic duration. It felt as if time unravels, like a gentle harp, its threads stretching out into infinity, no longer a constraint upon her existence, but a boundless field of unmeasured potential. The internal score, which had carefully navigated the gravity of the journal and the chaotic joy of the skipping stones, now swelled into its grandest, most expansive movement. The violin section starts to swell and climb, a collective effort of stringed instruments, rising together in pitch, volume, and emotional intensity. This was not a cacophony, but a melody that lifts and soars and cries, a cry of profound existential liberation and immense, powerful yearning for truth. This music was the pure sound of her spirit, escaping every burden of the time, shedding the historical failures inherited from the journal and the societal constraints that had bound her below. She stood physically small and utterly defiant beneath the vast and unrelenting skies, accepting the terrifying immensity and the utter divine indifference of the universe as her new, uncompromising, and ultimate witnesses. Chapter 2. The Ridge of Ultimate Sovereignty. Directly ahead, dominating the entire field of vision, the mountain presented its final, most formidable psychological barrier. The ridge ascends, a sharp line in the air, a granite razor's edge drawn meticulously across the face of the distant horizon. This ridge was the ultimate threshold, the non-negotiable divide, the final curtain hiding the unknown. Beyond it lay the true inner world of the mountain, the silent, wind-scoured plateau where the ancient observatory must reside, a terrain utterly divorced from the world she had spent her life preparing in. This realization demanded a final, absolute internal purification. This was a silent world, that she must now prepare to encounter, a place where verbal noise was meaningless, and all action was instantly reduced to its essential survivalist core. She had to steel herself to meet its challenge, absolutely alone. The collected strength of the valley, the rhythm of the river, the knowledge extracted from the journal, all were now reduced to pure internal anchors. She could rely on no external encouragement, no human companionship, and no further philosophical distractions. The moment demanded the complete unity of self forged by her journey, as relentless progression. The violin section, though soaring to great heights, maintained a deep resonant tone of profound respect. The sound is powerful, yet full of awe. This awe was generated by the knowledge that the small world she had known, the comforting, predictable life of the valley, is bound by simple, unforgiving law, the law of gravity, of social stasis, of limited expectations and predictable decline. Yet the high mountain, for all its immense power and indifference, was still an unfulfilled destiny, an empty stage. The raw, exposed rock awaited her unique intervention, confirming that the high world but still awaits the planting of a stone. That stone was her final triumphant physical presence, marking the site of knowledge reclaimed. The mountain was indifferent, but its purpose awaited her action. Chapter 3. The Ribbon of the Past and the Terror of the Void. Before committing her weight and destiny to the final ascent of the ridge, Ilara allowed herself one long, necessary glance back. Performing the sacred ritual of final separation, she dropped her gaze past the soaring, ambitious melodies down to the immense valley she had permanently departed. She sees the valley where the river bends, a massive complex bowl of life now reduced to a legible, almost abstract pattern of green and brown. The river, her first great teacher and guide, was visible far below as a ribbon winding down to distant plains, a silver thread that stitched together the mountain slopes with the endless lowland expanse. In that shimmering ribbon she saw not an end, but the cyclical nature of all existence. It represented the path of life that never truly ends, merely transforms, winding endlessly across the mountains. And the falling rains, the view granted her, the cosmic perspective, her life, her quest, was merely a single, vertical line drawn on this vast cyclical plane. She was not leaving life. She was ascending to a higher vantage point from which to finally understand it and to intercede in its fate. The music reflected the sharp pain of this final severance. The music holds the fear that makes her pause, a sudden, intense cold wave of profound loneliness and smallness. This was the terror of the open, vacant space, the sheer void of the sky above, and the endless, uninhabited, featureless rock below that offered no comfort, no echo, and no mercy. This sensation was the last great internal obstacle to be conquered by will alone. She stood precisely at the point before she breaks the unwritten silent laws, the dwell of safety, risk aversion, and conventional social life that kept others anchored firmly in the valley. She was preparing to break free, and turns her back upon this friendly place, trading warmth for thin air, comfort for truth, and community for sovereign solitude. Chapter 4. The Unwritten World and the Final Pure Note. The moment of decision arrived, sharp and clean, severing the past from the entire future. The immense swelling composition of the violins began its deliberate, powerful, and total resolution. The strings resolve into a single high note, a sustained, intense, and pure tone that hung suspended and vibrating in the thin, sharp air. This single final note was the culmination of all the previous music, the rhythm, the failure, the history, and the hope, distilled into a pure, undeniable statement of individual intent. Physical sensation confirmed this absolute resolve. She felt the feeling of the wind upon her face, a fierce, cold, unblinking presence that was the mountain's final honest greeting. The wind did not offer comfort, it offered supreme truth and resistance. Looking up past the summit of the ridge, she saw the sheer, unbridled magnitude of the world opening up to her. A vista that was the world beyond is waiting clearly, rote written in the exposed, unyielding strata of rock in the clear, cold, unforgiving light. This vast silent world contained a grand ambition set to win the race, not a race against time or against others, but the existential race to meet and fully realize her own potential at the summit of her being. With the high note sustaining its pure resonant frequency, Ilara took her first committed step onto the jagged, exposed spine of the ridge. She turned her back definitively on the valley of the known and stepped into the sharp, thin light of the unknown, ready to climb toward the destiny waiting to be claimed.